Hi, I'm Billy, and welcome back to Billy's VHS Tapes. Today we're reviewing 1988's Beetlejuice, a super weird movie about spooky ghosts and interior design. Let's do some fun facts. The movie was directed by Tim Burton. It was the second movie that he directed, and its commercial success led him to directing Batman. The movie stars Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and Jeffrey Jones. The music was composed by Danny Elfman, who has become very well known for composing music for Tim Burton movies. The original script was a lot darker, and if you can believe it, even weirder than what we got. The script was so weird it was almost impossible to sell it to Hollywood, but it found its way over to the Geffen Company, and was then distributed by the Warner Brothers. They own Batman.
I'm Batman.
The movie cost $15 million to make, and it brought in over $70 million at the box office. The movie spawned an animated series in the 90s. The show eliminated the Maitland's characters and revolved around Lydia. Each episode, she would travel to the underworld and hang out with Beetlejuice, who is now less threatening and more kid-friendly. Beetlejuice is one of those 80s franchises that was never intended for children, or at least young children, but Hollywood saw the movie as a very marketable opportunity. Warner Brothers developed products for children such as a line of action figures, and 3 different video games. One for the PC, one for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and one for the Game Boy. In 2018, the movie was rewritten into a Broadway musical and began performing live in New York City. And after a very long wait, a sequel was finally announced and is set to release fall of 2024. I love this movie. It's a gross and wacky ride that I've enjoyed since I was a kid. So let's turn up the juice and see what shakes loose, because it's showtime.
And now, our feature presentation.
The movie opens with a model.
Ow!
Not that kind of model. This kind of model. And we meet our main characters, Adam and Barbara Maitland. The couple live in a small town, and when their landlord pays them a visit, she tells them that their house is too big for just the two of them, and it ought to house a big family.
Oh, Pumpkin, I didn't mean anything. It's just that, really, this house is too big.
Whatever, bitch. My rent's paid. Get out of my house.
Adam and Barbara are taking a stay-at-home vacation. A staycation, if you will. And what was supposed to be a quick trip into town ends up taking a turn for the worst.
The worst!
After swerving to avoid a dog, the couple crash through the bridge tunnel and land headfirst in the river below. We cut back to the house, and the fireplace ignites all by itself.
Fire! I think you too burn.
When Adam and Barbara arrive at the house, they have no memory of how they got there. And they have no reflections in the mirror. And when Adam tries to go back to the bridge to retrace their steps, he's transported to the movie Dune and he's almost eaten by a sandworm. But Barbara pulls him back onto the porch just in time. And while he was gone, Barbara discovered a book on their coffee table that hadn't been there before. The book is titled The Handbook for the Recently Deceased, leading the Maitlands to the realization that they did not survive the car crash, and they are now spirits who haunt their own home.
Oh, how can it get any worse?
The next day, the Maitlands wake up to find out that their house has been sold to the Deets family. Charles, Delia, and their daughter Lydia. The Deetses are a yuppie family from New York who plan on remodeling the entire house. Adam and Barbara are very displeased by this idea because they spent most of their married life designing the house together. But Adam's been reading up on the handbook and tells Barbara that they're not completely helpless.
There's a word for people in our situation. Ghosts.
As the Maitlands ponder how to scare away the Deetses, we're introduced to Delia's overbearing friend, Otho, played by Glenn Shaddix. Delia and Otho make their way through the house, becoming less and less impressed with what they see. And in each room that they enter, Adam and Barbara attempt to scare them away.
just have to pray the other closets are bigger than this one.
But their spooky powers aren't strong enough yet, and their attempts go unnoticed. Frustrated with their situation, Barbara storms out of the house, but she too is transported to the movie Dune when she tries to leave. Adam chases after her and they're confronted by a sandworm. And when it tries to eat them, Barbara bops it on the nose. The sandworms are never really explained in the movie. It is implied that their role in the spirit world is to keep ghosts where they belong, because we only ever see them whenever Adam and Barbara try to leave the house. But later on in the movie, Beetlejuice actually points out that they're on Saturn whenever they encounter the sandworms.
We've been to Saturn! Hey, I've been to Saturn! Whoa. Sandworms. You hate them, right? I hate them myself!
So in this universe, if you try to leave your resting place, you end up on the planet Saturn? The next day, the Deets continue to move in, and as Lydia is snapping photos, she happens to look up at the attic window and see Adam and Barbara. All three of them are shocked that Lydia can see them and no one else can. And when Lydia obtains a skeleton key, she makes her way upstairs to open the locked attic door, while Adam and Barbara hold the door shut so she can't get in. The TV turns itself on, and we see the ghost with the most promoting himself as a bioexorcist who can get rid of the living.
Hell, I'll possess myself if I gotta! Whoa! Yo! I got demons running all through me!
Beetlejuice was once a man, but he's now a ghost with an arsenal of spooky superpowers. But he can't use any of them unless somebody says his name 3 times. You know, I love this movie, and I've always thought it was weird, but when you sit down and review it, you realize that it's actually really f***ing weird. And it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Like, why does he need you to say his name 3 times? And why can't he just say it himself? It's even implied that he can't say his own name, because in his advertisements he calls himself Beetlejuice. But I'm getting off track. Sorry, back to the movie. The Maitlands are at their wits' end, and Adam mentions that he read in the handbook that in times of desperation they could draw a door. Barbara doesn't have much faith in it.
You didn't actually think that was going to work, did you?
But when he knocks 3 times, the makeshift door begins to open and fills the room with a glowing green light. The glowing green light leads the Maitlands to the waiting room of the dead, where they wait to meet with their caseworker, Juno. When they're finally called back, we see that the afterlife has its similarities to the present life, in the form of corporate bureaucracy.
Welcome, my son! Welcome to the machine!
Adam and Barbara are told to go to the 6th door, and after they make their way through what looks like a funhouse, they find themselves back home, only their house has been completely remodeled. Obviously confused, the Maitlands wonder, just how long were they sitting in that waiting room?
3 months. I'd almost given up on you. I was about to leave.
We're introduced to their caseworker, Juno, who tells them that their case isn't worth her time, and if the Maitlands want the Deetses out of their house, they gotta get them out themselves.
Do it!
She also warns them that Beetlejuice has been sleazing around the cemetery on Adam's model. She says that he's bad news, and they should stay away from him because he doesn't work well with others.
Volatile, self-obsessed, don't play well with others.
Meanwhile, Charles Deets wanted to move out to the country to get away from everything. But he just can't keep himself out of the business world, as he tries to get his boss to invest in the small town that he now lives in. His phone call is interrupted by Adam and Barbara, who are wearing sheets to look like ghosts in an attempt to scare him away. But he's not impressed, and he thinks that it's Lydia playing a prank on him. Lydia then snaps photos of them thinking it's her parents playing sexy sheet games. But when the photos show that they don't have any feet, she realizes that they must be the people that she saw in the attic. When Adam asks why she can see them and no one else can, Lydia tells them that she read in their handbook that the living tend to ignore the strange and unusual.
I myself am strange and unusual.
The Maitlands ask Lydia to try to convince her parents that the house is haunted and that living there could be dangerous. And the next day, while Delia prepares for a dinner party, Lydia is unsuccessful at convincing her that the house is haunted. Upstairs, the Maitlands feel defeated, but a beacon of hope begins to glow from the cemetery on Adam's model. Ignoring Juno's warnings, Barbara calls out Beetlejuice's name 3 times, and the couple are then transported into the model. After digging him up, nearly an hour into the movie, we're finally introduced to the title character, the disgustingly hilarious Beetlejuice. The B-Man would not be acceptable by today's standards.
The whole being dead thing!
He assaults Barbara several times, and when the Maitlands realize they've made a mistake, he tries to manipulate them into changing their minds.
Don't you hate it when that happens? Let's go, Barbara. Wait.
But with some dumb luck, Barbara is able to get them out of the model.
Home, home, home!
Barbara, how did you do that?
Where are you? You bunch of losers! Nice f***ing model!
Extra fun fact, some of the later VHS copies of this movie cut out the scene where Beetlejuice honks his dick. Probably to make the movie a little more family friendly, you know? But I watched the Blu-ray copy, and I noticed that they put the scene back in the movie. Which proves that Hollywood has been altering movies and causing Mandela effects for probably forever. Later that night, the Deetses are hosting a dinner party. The hot topic at dinner is spirits in the afterlife, and Delia expresses that she doesn't want to talk about that subject anymore. She wants to sing about it. Adam and Barbara possess everyone at the dinner party and force them to sing and dance to Harry Belafonte's Banana Boat song. This is probably the most iconic moment of the movie. Everybody knows this scene, even if you've seen the movie or not. The spectacle ends with their faces full of shrimp hands. And the Maitlands are certain that that'll scare them off for good.
False.
But alas, the partygoers enjoyed the possession, and they ask Lydia if they can meet her ghost friends. When the Maitlands refuse to come downstairs, Delia storms up to the attic to confront them. When they don't find them, she then insists that they vacate before they scare them away. And on his way out, Otho steals their handbook. And then Beetlejuice shows up, even though nobody called his name 3 times, and he takes on the form of a giant snake. He attacks the Deets family, and just as he's going for Lydia, Barbara calls out his name 3 times, sending him back to the model.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice! Oh, no!
Back in the attic, the Maitlands confront the Bee-Man. He tells them that he noticed that Lydia has a thing for death, and he can use that to his advantage. That's right, the title character is the villain of the movie, something that doesn't happen very often. A spooky specter showdown? With humans caught in the crossfire? Sounds like a movie plot to me. When Barbara picks up Beetlejuice to give him a talking to, he sprouts spikes and pricks her fingers.
Go ahead. Make my millennium. I'm feeling a little, anxious, if you know what I mean.
Which means he's horny, by the way, if you didn't know that.
Horny like the devil.
Which is why Juno uses a whorehouse to distract him. And as Beetlejuice heads to Loveland, the Maitlands are then transported to the underworld in Juno's office. Juno tells the Maitlands that they've screwed up big time by allowing themselves to be photographed, letting out Beetlejuice, and Otho has their handbook. She tells them that they must get rid of the Deets family immediately, to avoid the world of the dead being revealed to the world of the living. Meanwhile, Lydia plans on unaliving herself, but when she makes a trip to the attic to drop off her note, she runs into a freshly squeezed Beetlejuice. Using charades, he tries to convince her to get her to say his name 3 times, but the monster Maitlands show up just before she says it the 3rd time. Adam and Barbara have grown accustomed to having Lydia around, and they decide that being stuck with her makes the changes to the house not so bad.
I am stuck in the middle with you.
Downstairs, Charles has convinced his boss to make a trip out to the sticks. Charles's boss and his wife have no interest in his sales pitch, and the only reason they're there is because they heard that the house was haunted. Since the Maitlands have decided to let the Deets family stay, they refuse to reveal themselves from their spooky-seeking spectators. But Otho's been reading up on the handbook and tells them that he can perform an exorcism and force them out. Using the Maitlands' leftover wedding clothes, Otho begins to speak the incantation, and the Maitland spirits begin to fill their wedding attire. Adam and Barbara begin to rot and deteriorate away. Feeling helpless, Lydia knows that she has no other choice than to ask the Bee-Man for help. He tells her that he'll only help her out if she agrees to marry him, so that he can legally come back into the world of the living. Because why not add another subplot to this already weird-ass movie? Lydia says the magic words.
Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
It's showtime.
The model begins to shake as Beetlejuice rises out of it, and he delivers a very dated, but also still funny line.
Attention, keyboard shoppers!
With comedic carnival-like style, Beetlejuice quickly kills off Charles's boss and his wife.
That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't.
Beetlejuice saves the Maitlands and dresses Otho in tacky attire. and he wastes no time beginning his and Lydia's wedding ceremony. When the Maitlands try to stop him, Beetlejuice uses his powers to send them away. Barbara ends up on Saturn, and Adam ends up in the model. He uses the toy truck to crash into Beetlejuice's foot just before he puts the ring on Lydia's finger. And suddenly Barbara comes crashing through the ceiling riding on a sandworm. Because why not? Nothing in this movie makes sense anymore, like it ever did. Barbara jumps off the sandworm just as it gobbles up Beetlejuice and crashes through the floor. Having been through a strange and unusual experience, Charles and Delia can now see Adam and Barbara. The two families put aside their difference and decide to share the house together. The movie ends with Adam and Barbara rewarding Lydia for her good grades by possessing her.
Shake, 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 Sinora, shake your body liner. Shake, 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 Sinora, shake it all the time. Work, 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 Sinora, work your body liner. Work, 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 Sinora, work it all the time. Jump in the line, rock your body on time. Okay, I believe you.
Oh, and we see Beetlejuice in the waiting room of the dead, implying that he died again, even though the marriage to Lydia never actually happened. So he was never part of the land of the living again. So many questions.
Jump in the line, rock your body on time. Okay, I believe you. Jump in the line, rock your body, child.
That's it. That's Beetlejuice. A super fun, spooky movie that might be a good idea to turn off your brain to watch. I feel like the 80s was the last time you could make a movie like this, where you could argue that the open-ending questions almost make the movie better. It's definitely dated, but it shows us how far Tim Burton has come. Do I recommend it? I'm gonna go ahead and recommend this movie for everyone over the age of 10. It has some questionable scenes that I feel like someone of a younger age could be scared of, but anyone 10 and up will have a lot of fun watching this movie. Especially the kids. They'll feel like they're getting away with something when they watch this one. And I know that I made a lot of jokes that this movie doesn't make sense, but I still love this movie. And that just proves that you can play fast and loose with the rules, as long as you tell a good story. Well, that about does it for this review. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. And if you like what you saw, make sure you hit the like button and consider sharing the video. And if you're back here again watching my videos, you might as well hit the subscribe button. Go ahead. It's right there. Go ahead. I'll wait. Also, leave a comment telling me how you feel about the movie. And if you like listening to my movie reviews, check out my podcast with the Film Trigger Boys. Full Frontal Nudity! Where you'll hear us talk about movies, TV, comic books, and everything in between. Look for it on Spotify. Also, check out my social media pages, where I post updates on this channel, the podcast, and fun pop culture stuff. Make sure you finish your business and keep your soul happy. Later, dudes.